So we discussed in the last lecture video, we discussed the power and impedance, and the voltage and current were represented as phasors, and we discussed a little bit more about power and impedance, and then we discussed the impedance of input impedance of transmission lines of certain specific lengths, mainly the 1/8 transmission line. That is, the length of the line is lambda by 8, and then we had we discussed the lambda by 4 line and the lambda by 2 line as well. So specifically lambda by 4 line, the 1/4 wavelength line has some interesting applications, as we will discuss later through examples in impedance matching. Now, before we work out the examples, there is one topic to be discussed, that is the single stub impedance matching. Single stub impedance matching. This topic is to be discussed. So we know that we have been using this expression throughout the previous couple of lectures or so. The input impedance of the transmission line, or the line impedance of a transmission line at a particular point S, is given by this expression, tan beta S. So I write 2 pi by lambda S, because beta is 2 pi by lambda, divided by R naught plus JZR tan 2 pi by lambda S. And we also discussed earlier as to what happens if ZR is 0. So ZR is basically the impedance, the load impedance which is connected at the transmission line output, that is on the far end of the source. And if that is 0, it means that the transmission line is short circuited. And if you substitute ZR as 0, we get the result as Z short circuit. I'll write Z short circuit. ZR is 0 means we get the result as R naught. ZR is 0. ZR is 0. And we see that we end up getting J tan 2 pi by lambda S. Of course, Z short circuit, and at this S, that is the particular location on the transmission line, this is the impedance, input impedance of the transmission line. So we had discussed this earlier, and we had even had a few plots of this, as well as the case of ZR being infinite, that is open circuit. So we know this is the result of the input impedance, Z short circuit, or you can even write ZS, because it is still a function of S. So depending on S, the impedance varies. But what we see is that the impedance is imaginary, so it's reactive. So now we can write the admittance as equal to, so instead of impedance, because the ensuing discussion will be easier if we discuss in terms of the admittance. So the admittance will be YS, and you know it will be just the inverse of this. That gives minus J, because 1 by this J is in the denominator, I take it up, I get minus J cot 2 pi by lambda S by R naught. This is the admittance of the transmission line. And we have plotted this, of course not this, but we have plotted minus cot earlier in the context of the impedance of an open circuited line. And it looks, a rough sketch if I plot, it looks like this. 0, this is S, that is the particular point on the transmission line, and as you know, S0 corresponds to the load, the location of the load. So 0, S is lambda by 4, S is lambda by 2, and so on, but it's repetitive. And we have a variation like this. So if you plot only this will go and asymptotically touch this line. S is equal to lambda by 2, it goes and touches that, and similarly this goes and tries to touch the S is equal to 0 line, that is the vertical axis. And what we have plotted here is minus cot. So what is plotted is the real part of the admittance minus cot beta S by R naught is what is being plotted. Anyhow, let it be there. Now let this be there. Now what happens is, how do we make use of this particular short-circuited line in an actual situation? Let's say we have a transmission line, a long transmission line. So this side is the source, and we have, let's say, a load ZR. We have some load ZR here. Let's say we have this situation. Now, there need not be a matching here, and there can be reflection. So what we do is, we identify the first position from the load where we have Emax. So you know that if there is no match, the voltage waveform on the line will be such that it will have a maximum amplitude and a minimum amplitude. Let's say that the first maximum amplitude of the voltage occurs somewhere here arbitrarily. It's a general discussion. And let's say that at this point ZS, so maybe I will call it as S1. S1 is the point where I have Emax. ZS1 will be equal to, we know that wherever we have an Emax, the impedance is resistive, purely real, and we know that it will be Rmax because it's Emax, Imin and Rmax that was discussed earlier. So Rmax will be R0 into S, which means that the admittance here, which will be a conductance, will be equal to 1 by R0 S. Okay, now let's say here we have Emin. So you have Emax here and then you have Emin, let's say. And let's say this is S2. So that means Z S2 will be equal to, and again it is a location, it's a position, it's a particular location point on the transmission line where there is Emin. So Imax, and hence the resistance will be Rmin, which is R0 by S. That means the conductance will be S by R0. So you can see that the conductance is 1 by R0 S here, and it is S by R0 here. Now what it means is that somewhere in the middle, we will have a particular S, say S dash, somewhere here. It can be anywhere between these two, wherein the admittance will be 1 by R naught plus or minus JB. So remember that wherever there is an Emax, we have a purely resistive impedance. That means a pure conductance as the admittance here, and that is what we saw here, purely resistive impedance R naught into S, which translates into an admittance which is purely conductive. That means you just get 1 by R naught S. Similarly, at this point you have the minimum resistance R naught by S. The admittance is resistive and it is minimum R naught by S, and correspondingly translates to an admittance which is S by R naught, which is a pure conductance. And in 1 by R naught is a value which lies in between these two. So in between these two, there has to be a point where the conductive part of the admittance has to be 1 by R naught, because here it is 1 by R naught S, it is purely a conductance. Here it is R naught S by R naught, purely a conductance. Somewhere in between you should have an admittance such that the conductive part of that is 1 by R naught. And as I said, 1 by R naught lies between these two. And there we can have some value for the imaginary part of the admittance, say in, as I have written here, plus or minus JB. Now suppose we connect. So I will remove this. Now I need only this. So I'll just clear some space here so that there is no congestion. And even this I think I can remove. So we know that here it is Emax, here it is Emin. And the conductance here, the admittance here is 1 by R naught plus or minus JB. Now suppose we take a short-circuited transmission line like this and connect it. We connect it parallel to the line like this. So till here the line is there, and then it splits into two parallel sections. So one section is a short-circuited piece of transmission line which is connected here. The other section has the load. Now if we do this, we can select its length such that, and remember that as discussed a short while ago, this will have an admittance which will be given by minus J cot 2 pi by lambda S by R naught. So this will be the, we know that this will be the admittance of this line when we see it from this side. When we see it from this side. When you see it from this side, this will be the admittance, and S, of course, depending on this S, it will have a particular value. Now suppose we choose S. We choose S such that, minus J cot 2 pi by lambda S by R naught is equal to minus or plus JB. That is, if this happens to be plus JB, we choose S such that this becomes minus JB. Or if this happens to be minus JB, we choose S such that this turns out to be plus JB. Now suppose we adjust S such that the admittance as seen from here turns out to be this. Then what happens is, since this section, this part and this part are in parallel, and the admittance here, the admittance of the line here is given by this, and the admittance of this is given by this, and you have two admittances in parallel which add up. And when they add up, you see that since this is adjusted to be minus or plus JB, and this is having 1 by R naught plus or minus JB, when the two add up, the JB result, that is the imaginary part will cancel off. So what happens is, at this point, due to the presence of this short-circuited line, the admittance becomes 1 by R naught, because this and this will cancel, they are appearing in parallel. So admittance at this point, due to the presence of this short-circuited transmission line of length S, such that this is equal to minus R plus JP, will be equal to 1 by R naught, which means that the impedance here will be equal to R naught due to the presence of this. And that means that from the source till this point, the transmission line is matched, in the sense the transmission line from the source, because here the impedance is equal to R naught, which means that there will be no reflection from here. This can be now be seen as an impedance R naught, and you have the transmission line which is carrying signals from the source, which is at a far off distance, and there will be no reflection from here. And this is how we can make use of this to achieve an impedance matching. Of course, this distance, this is the distance which is between the first Emax and the first Emin. This is the distance between the first Emax and the first Emin. And that distance, and this is somewhere between that, and this will be pretty small. So whatever mismatch exists here, will result in some reflection, but since this length is very small, the resultant loss will be negligible. So this setup that we have, wherein we connect a short-circuited line like this to achieve the impedance matching as I explained here, is known as the short-circuited stub. Or you can even call this as a method wherein we are using a single stub for impedance matching. And that was the title that I had at the beginning of this video. Now one can also have an open circuited stub, though it is not preferred. It is possible to have an open circuited stub, and we know that the input impedance of an open circuited transmission line is given by this expression minus j r naught cot 2 pi s by lambda, which means that the admittance of an open circuited transmission line is given by j tan 2 pi s by lambda by r naught. So it is possible to have, it is possible to adjust s here such that this becomes minus or plus jb. It is possible. So that when an open circuited stub is connected in parallel, as we discussed earlier as to how a short circuited stub is connected, it is also possible to connect an open circuited stub in parallel at that particular location where we have the admittance as equal to this, and then cancel this off and end up getting a resistance, an impedance at that point which is equal to R naught, and avoid reflection from that point towards the source, and attain some kind of impedance matching. But how is it going to look like? Let's say this is the transmission line, and we have the load here. Now the open circuited stub, when you connect, will be just like this. You just have to leave it floating. It's open circuit. And there are a lot of course, some S will be there such that it is equal to minus or plus JB. Of course, when you just leave a transmission line like this and leave it open, there are many potential problems that can arise. One of them is that these will act as radiators and there will be power loss from here. So that is one of the problems that one can encounter. So a short circuited stub is preferred because a short circuit is fairly well defined. You just have to short it. Whereas an open circuit is not that well defined because you just leave it open there. So this is the reason why a short circuited stub is preferred, but technically or theoretically it is equally possible to use an open circuited stub for the impedance matching. So that is about the use of single stubs for impedance matching. Now we will work out some examples. We'll take some problems, and these problems will be concentrating on the use of lambda by 4 transmission line for impedance matching. The first problem is design I'll write the problem first. Design a transmission line segment. Design a transmission line segment that transmission line segment that matches 300 ohms to 50 ohms at 10 gigahertz. At 10 gigahertz. 10 gigahertz is a fairly high frequency. Using a quarter wavelength match. Using a quarter wavelength match. Assume this data is additional because to solve the problem, in fact, this is enough. So it's just additional data. Assume microstrip propagation, microstrip line, assume microstrip transmission line, that is, assume microstrip transmission line wherein propagation occurs with a wavelength 60% of that in free space. So this is the question. We have to design a transmission line segment that matches 300 ohms to 550 ohms at 10 gigahertz using a quarter wave line match. You have to assume, of course, that it is this. As I said, this is additional data. Assume microstrip line is used wherein propagation occurs with a wavelength 60% of that in free space. So let us solve this. This is a fairly simple question. So our situation, from the given statement, we can develop this model. We have 300 ohms and maybe a source here, and there is 50 ohm, which could be the load, or it can be the other way also. That is, the source is of 50 ohms, load is 300 ohms. We have a situation like this. This is the model, and what we have to do is we need to find out, or we need to have a lambda by 4 length transmission line here. And as I said in the last part of the problem, it was said that it is a microstrip transmission line, and we have to find out what is the characteristic impedance of this line. So we have to find that. This is the question. So we saw earlier in the previous video Z lambda by 4. that is the input impedance of a lambda by 4 line is given by R0 square by ZR. And in general, that will be Z0 square by ZR. And this, in our case, has to be 300 ohms, so that the impedance of this lambda by 4 line, as seen from here, has to be 300 ohms. And if, as seen from here, the impedance is 300, this is nothing but Z lambda by 4. That is the input impedance of the transmission line of length lambda by 4, which has a 50 ohm resistance at its output. So this impedance, if this impedance is the 300 ohms, then we have a perfect match because the source has a 300 ohms impedance. So if we can somehow adjust the R0, the characteristic impedance R0 or Z0 of this, such that the input impedance is 300 ohms, then we are done. So what this says, and in our case, ZR is 50 ohms because that is the load resistance. ZR is 50 ohms. That means the characteristic impedance has to be square root of ZR into 300. That is 50 into 300 ohms, which can be readily calculated around 122.5 ohms. So that has to be the characteristic impedance of this line. And if we can have such a line fabricated, it's a microstrip transmission line. If we can have such a line fabricated, we have solved the problem. Now, we have been given some additional data which is saying that the frequency of operation is 10 gigahertz. So we have answered the main part of the question. It is 122.5 ohms. We are told that the operating frequency is 10 gigahertz and the wavelength is 60% of what it would be in free space. In free space, the wavelength would have been lambda is equal to C by F. And F is 10 gigahertz, so 10 power 10 hertz. And this is the velocity of light in meters per second. 3 into 10 power 8 divided by, this would have been the wavelength in free space, and since it is 60% of this, in this context, the wavelength is this. So this is the wavelength on the transmission line. This is the wavelength. And you can calculate this, and this will turn out to be 1.8 centimeters. It's 1.8 centimeters, which means that the length of our quarter wave length transmission line will be 1.8 centimeters by 4. That turns out to be 4.5 millimeter, because that will be 0.9 by 2, 0.45 centimeters, 4.5 millimeters. You can see it's pretty small, and that is happening because the frequency is high, the wavelength is small. So it is a very small section of transmission line, microstrip transmission line, that you need. Now, a microstrip transmission line will be like this. The fabrication is like this. Immediately after this explanation, I will display a picture which shows its construction. So this is how it is. This is a microstrip line. This will be a microstrip line. Of course, this continues. Now, this will be metal. This will be the substrate, a dielectric, and this will be a metal strip. So we have the shaded part is metal, and this becomes a transmission line. So you have a transmission line here which can carry the signal. It is this that we are talking about, and this length W, by adjusting this W, it is possible to adjust the characteristic impedance of this transmission line. So in our problem, we got the required characteristic impedance to be 122.5. So while fabricating, you have to address W. We have to adjust W such that the And there is a formula, of course, which is not relevant to the present discussion, which relates W to the characteristic impedance. So you have to adjust W such that you get the characteristic impedance of 122.5. And as we saw here, the length will be 4.5 millimeter, very small, since it is a microstrip line which operates at very high frequency. Now here, now I'll just display the a schematic diagram which explains a simple diagram which explains the fabrication. It's the same as this. Only thing is that it will be neater than this. Okay, let us take the next problem now. This is the statement: a patch antenna. Again, this is a microwave device. So basically we'll be solving the problem based on a model, but the statement goes like this: a patch antenna exhibits source impedance. Exhibits an impedance. It exhibits an impedance equal to 35 plus J35 ohms. So equal real and imaginary part. This is the impedance. Resistive and reactive part is equal. Now this has to be interfaced. This has to be interfaced. This has to be interfaced to a 50 ohm line. It has to be interfaced to a 50 ohm transmission line. The section of transmission line adjacent to patch antenna has R0 is equal to 50 ohms. We have to determine, the question is to determine L1, L2 of the two segments. I'll tell you what is L1 and L2 by drawing a diagram of two segments of transmission line and characteristic impedance of lambda by 4 segment. So it's a pretty long statement. Of course, once we simplify that into a model, it becomes quite easy. So let's read that again. A patch antenna exhibits an impedance 35 plus J35 ohms. This has to be interfaced to a 50 ohm line. It has to be interfaced to a 50 ohm transmission line. And the section of transmission line adjacent to patch antenna has a characteristic impedance of 50 ohms. We have to determine L1, L2 of the two segments of transmission line. That is the lengths L1 and L2 of the two segments of transmission line and the characteristic impedance of the lambda by 4 segment. Okay, now I will explain what does this statement actually mean through a simple diagram. Now, this is remember the entire thing that I'm drawing a two-dimensional figure here. It is something that is constructed on a substrate. So for the moment, that much of information is sufficient for us. This is the patch antenna. It is constructed on a substrate. This is the patch antenna. Again, immediately after this problem, I will display or maybe I will display it now. You can have a look. I will display it now. In the video, it will appear now. You can have a look, and then with the help of that, we'll be able to better appreciate what I'm able to draw. So here it is. Okay. So this is the patch antenna. This is the patch antenna, and this is what is being mentioned. This is the transmission line part which is being mentioned here. You can see that the section of transmission line adjacent to patch antenna, that is this section of transmission line adjacent to the patch antenna. This is the antenna. This is the antenna. Section of transmission line adjacent to the patch antenna has length L1, and it has a characteristic impedance of 50 ohms. So this has length L1 and characteristic impedance 50 ohm. We have to find out L1. That is one of the statements, one of the parts of the question, and we have to have a lambda by 4 line here, L2, and of course L2 is lambda by 4. So that part is easily answered. L2 is lambda by 4. We should have a lambda by 4 line here, and this setup has to be matched to a 50 ohm transmission line. Obviously, if we simply connect this to this, there will be no match, because the impedance from here need not be 50 ohms, because you have a 35 plus J35 load here, and then you have a 50 ohm section here which is attached to the load. It comes as a part of the load, and then you have a 50 ohm transmission line. You cannot simply have add the two, so you need to have a matching network here, a matching transformer, a load matching transformer here of length lambda by 4. So L2 is lambda by 4. I will not write it down. L2 is lambda by 4 because we know that it is a lambda by 4 line that we are going to use. The important part here is we should find out what is Z0 of this. Once we find that out, the problem is solved. So this is the question. This is how I can explain we can boil down this fairly big statement into a simple diagram. Now that we have this diagram, we can have the whole thing converted to a more familiar model so that the solution becomes easy. The more familiar model is this. We have a 50 ohm line. We have a 50 ohm line transmission, a long line, a 50 ohm transmission line, and we have a lambda by 4 matching quarter wave line which is doing the job of a matching transformer, and then we have a 50 ohm, and the output of that is connected to a load ZL which is 35 plus J35 ohms. So this is the antenna that we are talking about, which is now reduced to a simple load ZL. This is the transmission line adjacent to the antenna which is of length L1. We have to determine that, and then we have the lambda by 4 line and the 50 ohm transmission line. So this characteristic impedance of this is what we have to determine. So what we do is we begin with an attempt to find out the Z in here, because it's not just enough that we adjust this, we adjust the characteristic impedance of this such that it matches 35 plus J35 to 50 ohm, because you have a combination here. We have to find out what is the input impedance of this, and it is that impedance that has to be matched to 50 ohms using this. So let us calculate the input impedance, and we know that the expression for input impedance, again we have been discussing this time and again, the expression is Z in is given by Z naught, that is R naught in the case of high frequency lines, in the case of high frequency approximation. So I will straight away write, in place of Z naught I will write 50, in place of R naught I will write 50, 1 plus K e power minus J 2 beta 1 L1 divided by, please refer to the earlier videos if this formula is not familiar to you. We have been using this minus J 2 beta 1 L1. So L1 is this, beta 1 is the propagation constant in this line, and this is the input impedance. Now K, we need to know K. K is equal to, so this K here is the reflection coefficient from here. It is a reflection coefficient from here, and that will be equal to ZR minus R naught divided by ZR plus R naught. In our case, ZR, the load impedance, I'm sorry, I wrote it as ZL, I think it must be ZR, because that is the notation we have been using. Anyway, it doesn't matter whether you write L or R, as long as you know that it is the load impedance. So ZR minus R naught by ZR plus R naught. ZR in our case is 35 plus J35 ohms, and R naught is 50 ohms. So when I do ZR minus R naught, I will get minus 15 plus J35. ZR is 35 plus J35 minus 50. So 35 minus 50 is minus 15, and J35 is there as it is, divided by, in the denominator I get 85 plus J35, and this turns out to be minus 0.006 plus J 0.414. This turns out to be minus 0.006 plus J 0.414. That is the reflection coefficient from here. That's the reflection coefficient. Now with this reflection coefficient, we can of course express this in polar form. In polar form, this turns out to be 0.414, and the angle is 90.83 degrees. I will write it in radians. 1.59. Remember, this is in radians. I put it here in the radians. 1.59. So 0.414 e raised to j 1.59. That is in radians. So this is the reflection coefficient in the polar form. Now we can find out what is Z in. Now Z in will be equal to we have the expression here already. So 50 1 plus 0.414 e raised to exp, I will write, that is e raised to minus j is this, minus j over here, minus j 2 beta 1 L1. 2 beta 1 L1. So the 2 beta 1 L1 I will write later. So inside this I will write, because I have this phase angle, minus 1.59. That is the phi that we had. So if you recall, we used to write e raised to j, within brackets we had phi minus 2 beta s. So minus 1.59 plus, since I have minus j here and I am closing this bracket, now we have plus 2 beta 1 L1 divided by 1 minus the same thing. I will not write it. The same thing will come here because it's the same thing. So basically k will be 0.414 e raised to j 1.59. That is included here, 0.414 e raised to j 1.59, and then the e raised to minus j 2 beta 1 L1 is this, e raised to minus j 2 beta 1 L1 is that. So this is the value, the Zin. Now, it is, if you look at this, it's possible. See, this Zin will be in general complex. So if we can adjust L1, it is possible to make Zin look purely real, purely resistive. So if, and remember, this Zin is the impedance here. So if we can make it purely resistive, since this is also resistive, determining R0 for this becomes fairly easy. Finding out an R0 for this becomes fairly easy. And that is why the question has a part which asks you to find out L1. So we can find out L1 such that this is becoming purely resistive. So we have to find out an L1 such that this part becomes purely resistive. Analytically, it can be done. It's a bit tricky, and later on we'll see that there is an easier way of doing that. But before that, we'll do it analytically. So we know that this will be in fact, there are several values of L1 for which this will become real, but we prefer to have the smallest value for L1. We prefer to know what is the smallest value. So if this has to be real, this phase has to be 2 pi. If you can adjust that phase to 2 pi, the problem is solved. Or 2 pi into an integer. So let us do that. 1.59 minus 2 beta 1 L1, that is the phase, e raised to j 1.59 minus 2 beta 1 L1. If this is 2 pi into an integer, so I'll write that integer as n. If it is 2 pi into n, so 1.59 minus 2 beta 1 L1. So again, this is e raised to j 1.59 minus 2 beta 1 L1. So 1.59 minus 2 beta 1 L1, if that is 2 pi into an integer, we have achieved, or we can make Zin purely real. Of course, the other way of looking at it is that we have to make it 2n plus 1 into pi, where n is an integer. That is also possible, but that may result in a longer L1. So we are trying to look for the shortest L1 which can satisfy this condition, because of course we would prefer this to be small, everything to be small. Okay, so from this you can find out that the smallest value of L1 is when n is equal to 0. So if I put n is equal to 0 here, I get 2 beta 1 L1 is equal to 1.59, which means that beta 1 L1 is equal to 1.59 by 2. Beta 1 L1 is 1.59 by 2. That is turning out to be 0.795 radians. So this is beta 1 L1. Beta 1 L1 is 0.795 radians. So once we have that beta 1 as 0.795 radians, we can write L1 as equal to beta 1 L1 by beta 1, which is equal to beta 1 L1 is 0.795, 0.795 divided by beta 1 L1 is 0.795, note that, divided by beta 1 is 2 pi lambda. Beta 1 is 2 pi lambda. So this becomes 0.126 lambda. So the length of this has to be 0.126 times the wavelength. That is the smallest possible length that we can have, such that the input impedance here looks purely real. Of course, other values of L1 is also possible, but those values of L1 will be longer than this. So 0.12, so L1 has to be 0.126 lambda. The next part of the question has been answered, or rather, I think that was the first part. One of the first two parts was to find out L1 and L2. L2 we know it is lambda by 4. L1 is 0.126 lambda. Okay, now the characteristic impedance of this section. Now coming to that, with L1 as 0.126 lambda, Zin becomes 50 into 1 plus K is 0.414. The beta 1 L1 is adjusted such that, that's what we have been discussing all this while. Beta 1 L1 is adjusted such that this part, that is including the phase part of K in this, it becomes 1. So I just have to write 0.414 here. It is as good as 1 plus magnitude of K divided by 1 minus magnitude of K. That will be the input impedance. And this turns out to be 120.64 ohms. And in fact, the whole exercise, a short while ago, what we did, we arrived at L1 is equal to 0.126 lambda. The whole exercise was to make Zin purely real, and we have achieved it. Because by adjusting beta 1 L1, as I said, beta 1 L1 as equal to 0.795, whatever it is, or L1 as equal to 0.126 lambda, we have been able to convert this part into a purely real number. This is a purely real number, and that purely real number is nothing but the magnitude of K, which is 0.414. Okay, so this is Zin, which means that the impedance as seen from here is now, so with L1 as equal to, so maybe I can write it here, L1 as equal to 0.126 lambda, L1 as equal to 0.126 lambda, Zin is 120.64. Now, so this side the impedance is 50 ohms, this side the impedance is 120.64, which means that the characteristic impedance of this, of course it's going to be purely real, so I'll just write R0 itself. Characteristic impedance of this has to be equal to, will be equal to square root of 120.64 into 50. That turns out to be 77.66, I think, ohms, something very close to this, 77.66 ohms, or maybe if you want to round it off, you can call it as 78 ohms. And you can also see what is the length. This is lambda by 4, this is 0.126 lambda. So the total length between the patch antenna and the transmission line to which you are going to connect it is 0.126 lambda plus 0.25 lambda. That turns out to be 0.375 or 376 lambda. So that is the length. You can see that it's pretty small, but actually it is said that this length, this dimension is comparable to the dimension of the antenna itself. Anyhow, we are not bothered with it right now. And this is how we have solved the problem. So Z0 here has to be 77.66 ohms. And remember that this length, I just would like to emphasize it, because when you are going through this problem, remember that the time spent on finding out what is this length was to ensure that the input impedance here is purely real, so that this characteristic impedance becomes purely real. And later we will see how to solve the same problem, if possible, using a graphical method wherein the calculations become simpler. So with that, we will end this video.